He is a violent, spoiled, privileged child. That night at dinner, a drunk Jeremy starts talking to Chris about UFC fighting, saying that Chris would be a natural at it because he comes from hardy stock. He wants to spar, but Chris explains he has rules about playing fights with drunks. Dean and Missy advise Jeremy to go to bed. Rose apologizes for her family after Chris and Rose retreat to their room and fall asleep. Chris decides to sneak outside for a cigarette in the middle of the night after getting up. He is outside when he notices something approaching him from a distance. Walter's here. He approaches Chris directly, then abruptly turns around and flees in a different direction. Inside the house, Georgina is staring out a window. She is, in fact, looking at her own reflection and not Chris. Chris decides to go back inside after she adjusts her hair. Before Chris can return to his room, Missy startles him by turning on a light. She suggests smoking is a bad habit and offers to help him quit again. He sits but mocks the idea of hypnosis, unknowing that she is progressively hypnotizing him with her teaspoon as a focal object. She takes him back to the night his mother passed away when he was 11 years old, and he recalls that he was too terrified to do anything, like call the police, that would make it real, so he just sat in front of the TV while frantically pounding his bedposts. Chris is doing the same thing today, digging his claws into the chair's arms. She tells her to sink. 11-year-old Chris sinks into his bed, while present-day Chris sinks into darkness, seeing himself and Missy far above. His consciousness has left his body, which is paralyzed in the chair. When he awakens, he checks his phone. Chris received a photo of Rod acting like he was giving his dog beer. He plugs it in since his battery is low. Chris informs Rose that he believes her mother hypnotized him last night. He only has hazy memories of the event. The Armitage's wealthy friends arrive for the big party. Many elderly white individuals make improper comments to Chris, such as because Tiger Woods golfs, he must have a good swing as well as how he has a good build, and so on. When Chris returns to mingling with the visitors, he sees another black man. He is around Chris' age, and Chris tries to get along with him, but just like Walter and Georgina, he is rigid and unnatural. But something about him seems familiar to Chris. Chris walks out and meets Jim Hudson, a blind man who claims that everyone at the party are ignorant. Chris is perfectly aware of his identity and that he is an art dealer. Jim claims to be a fan of Chris's work. He recognizes the absurdity of a blind art dealer, but informs him that he has a terrific assistant who is great at describing art. He envies Chris's eye. Jim admits that he tried photography but was never very good at it. When Chris goes to his room, he finds that his phone is unplugged, and then he goes to seize in another room. He sees Georgina there, and then Rose comes upstairs and sees him. Chris calls her in their room and shows her that his phone is unplugged. He tells her that he thinks Georgina unplugged his phone for some reason, and he shows Rose that his phone is battery is at 0% in that time he plugged his phone after, and informs him of the situation. Rod cautions him to leave the area since white people enjoy having slaves.